The flaming Rex spike, that he again imbued with a green light, tore through numerous vines. But it was seemingly to no avail, as more and more vines appeared. Han Sen jumped and attempted to go airborne, but in the next second, he froze. Countless vines sprung out of the ground like a coven of wyverns. They twirled in between each other, forming a barrier to block his ascent. Dong! Han Sen's flaming Rex spike whacked against a vine that was thicker than a train. He created a meter-thick dent in the vine, but it wasn't nearly enough to cut through it and give himself release. Many other vines now came towards him, and Han Sen could do naught but run. He cast arrow and took off flying low. He dodged many of the vines that came for him, but the chance of escape seemed slim. Make him stay. Han Sen heard the woman's voice once more. Make who stay. There's no need to be so ambiguous and mysterious, just tell it to me straight. Han Sen still couldn't see where the woman was talking to him from, but he still spoke aloud in response. Han Sen did not think what he said would yield much of anything, but after he spoke, the raging vines stopped and returned to the soil. Han Sen looked around, but no one appeared. All the super creatures that had come to the mountain for the fruit had now dispersed and vanished. Only a few remained. There was the griffin, which was dead, and there were also the black flame phoenix, the green Kirin, the black skeleton, and the black tiger. They stood atop the peak as if they were frozen. He was unsure what they were doing, but after taking a closer look, he was given quite a shock. The legs of the 4 super creatures had grown roots, and vines had replaced what was once their hair. Their eyes seemed sullen and empty as they stood there. They looked like vegetables, unable to move or even blink. Han Sen used his devil eye mask to watch them. Their life forces were still strong, but ever so slowly, that energy was being driven into the roots. Needless to say, Han Sen was quite surprised. He thought to himself, is this the way the empty vine produces its offspring? All these creatures are made to become some sort of parasite host, is that it? And they provide the nutrients for the newborn vines. Han Sen thought it was a terrifying thing to witness, and that the vines were scarier than any other creature he had encountered before. Fortunately for him, he had decided not to eat the empty fruit. Becoming fertilizer was not in his best interests. If such powerful creatures were unable to resist the parasite-like being, Han Sen's human body would never have stood a chance. What is the current situation, then? The 4 empty fruit have already found their hosts, so why does it want me here? What does she want? Han Sen now believed the woman's voice was in fact the empty vine, since the voice seemed to control it. As he scanned the area in confusion, the empty vine that poked through the peak of the mountain began to stretch open as if blossoming. A new vine stretched out from the center, and there Han Sen saw a fist-sized green fruit. It was glowing beneath the sunlight with a lime glare. Han Sen's nose smelled something nice, and it made his body feel at ease. In his heart, he thought to himself, Moment Queen was right, after all. The 4 fruits from earlier were not the genuine empty fruit. This one right here has to be the real one. Han Sen, however, did not dare to approach. He merely watched the crystal-clear fruit that hung on the vine from afar. He could see where its core was, and there was a baby-like thing inside, similar to a fetus. The baby was too small, and it was all curled up, obscuring its gender. While Han Sen looked at it, this single vine approached him. The fruit hung from the vine less than 10 feet away from him. The baby that was curled up inside the core had its eyes closed, yet Han Sen felt as if he was being checked out by it. He felt as if he was being watched. Make him stay and you can go. Not long after, Han Sen heard the female voice once more. Are you talking to me? Han Sen looked at the baby inside the fruit with much shock and posed the question to it. Who else? The female voice spoke, as the empty fruit trembled upon the vine it grew upon. It was telling him that it was indeed her that was talking. Are you the super creature created by the empty vine? When Han Sen said this, he suddenly felt rather stupid. The answer to that question was fairly obvious. Sort of, yes, but sort of no, too. The baby's answer surprised Han Sen. No matter what the baby wanted, he wouldn't give away anything of his. With Little Silver, the Little Angel, and Moment Queen, and the Unreliable Fairy, I should be able to flee from here. Han Sen then looked at the 4 super creatures that were starting to look like plants, and suddenly lost the confidence he had just given himself. I am me, I that swallowed the seed of the holy empty. I was reborn. My genes advanced and took me to the 3rd god's sanctuary, but now, I do not know if I am truly myself. The female voice sounded heavy and solemn. Han Sen's heart leapt at the words, and he asked, are you the same as these super creatures? Han Sen was referring to the black flame phoenix and the rest that were under the influence of the parasitic force. The fruit moved, and then the female voice spoke again. After thousands of years, the empty vine bears fruit. They are reborn and their genes have improved. But who knows if they are still themselves right now? What were you before? Han Sen couldn't help but ask, as a super creature such as this was sure to have some history. I was an empty spirit witch. I am still an empty spirit witch. The voice spoke with assuredness, and it went on to say, I have already answered your questions. Can you give him over to me now? I have to be honest with you. I really don't know what it is that you want. If you told it to me straight, I could have given it to you much earlier, Han Sen tested. I want your plant of a holy spirit. There is nothing else you can provide that I see value in, the empty spirit witch said. Plant of a holy spirit. Han Sen's heart jumped and he presented her his gourd. Then he asked, is this it? Is this what you want? Yes, empty spirit witch confirmed. And then, the vine moved to take the gourd from Han Sen. Hang on. Han Sen pulled back his hand and then said, at least tell me why you want it. The empty spirit witch seemed upset by the question that was posed and said, for some reason, it did not grow as it should have. I am going to help it grow again, this time to its fullest. Han Sen froze, not expecting her to feel this way about it. Are you saying the gourd is like you? There is a super creature inside. It is a pure plant of a holy spirit. It is special and it cannot be compared with me. Where is it from? I don't know, but I can sense its holy presence. I cannot tell where it is from, the empty spirit witch said. If it is not the same as you, then why do you want it? Han Sen asked, looking at empty witch spirit. She seemed to be annoyed by the barrage of questions and no longer answered him. Instead, she said, that is none of your business, just give it to me. After that, the vine came again at Han Sen's hand. In response, he took 2 steps back and evaded it. This infuriated the empty spirit witch, and now her vines came out of the ground like dragons. Didn't you say you would enter the third god's sanctuary once you are born? How can you help this grow? He wasn't willing to hand over the gourd. What you say makes sense. I will be born soon, and it will be difficult for me to stay here. I can't take care of it. Han Sen quickly replied by saying, then how about you let me take care of it? I have already been taking good care of it. In fact, I treat this gourd as well as I would my own son. I keep it fed, and it has even had the opportunity to drink up countless gallons of super creature blood. Han Sen painted himself in the most positive light possible, as if he wanted to adopt a poor child into a wealthy family. She seemed touched by his words, and then, the baby inside the fruit opened its eyes. Emerald eyes peered right at him. She looked at Han Sen and the silver fox that rested on his shoulder, and then looked at the fairy inside his pocket. After a while of examining his person, she said, okay, you will take care of him, but he will be born with an incomplete gene. It will be difficult for this thing to be born, regardless of how much super creature blood it drinks. Wait here. When I am born, I will provide it with empty spirit blood. By doing that, I will repair its flaws. Han Sen happily agreed. He would receive a gift without having to risk his life. Seeing the fruit outside the empty spirit witch, he then thought of something. When the holy rhino entered the third god's sanctuary, it shed all of its old flesh. Now that she was going to the third god's sanctuary, Han Sen wondered if that meant she'd also have to leave the fruit of her composition behind. If she did, it might be just as good as the flesh of that rhino. Han Sen then waited for the empty spirit witch to be born, so he could take the fruit. Even if he couldn't eat it, it might prove beneficial to his new spirit owl. The vine with the fruit returned to the hill, and as it went, it released a refreshing fragrance. As time passed, Han Sen was able to observe the baby growing inside the core. It wasn't a shocking, violent scene as it had been with the holy rhino. The entire spectacle was mellow and serene. It remained there quietly, awaiting its own birth. Perhaps she had evolved slowly over the course of 1,000 years, and it wasn't a sudden transformation as it had been with the rhino. Everything was natural, and Han Sen waited there for 2 days. On the morning of the 3rd day, the core of the fruit cracked. Like an actual baby, the empty spirit witch waddled out of the fruit. She was almost the same size as the fairy, but lacked wings. She was naked, and a purple marking adorned her forehead. Aside from that, there was nothing special about her person. The empty spirit witch came closer and arrived before Han Sen. She was surrounded by spots of light, which floated upwards into the sky. Bring out the Holy Spirit, the empty spirit witch said, standing 2 feet away from Han Sen. He was alert, but he still opened his hands to reveal the gourd to her. He stared at her intently. If she tried to steal it, he'd pull it back and fight. She landed on Han Sen's hand and cut her finger. A drop of transparent blood fell onto the gourd. The blood was clearer than water, and when it dripped onto the gourd absorbed it in a second. After absorbing the blood, the dry and yellow gourd showed movement. The gourd began to tremble as if with life. It didn't seem as if there was a big change, but Han Sen could sense the movement of its life force unlike ever before. Han Sen's heart was tremendously glad. He had believed she was going to do something ill-conceived, and right now, she was actually aiding him in his care of the gourd. Han Sen used to feel that the gourd lacked a certain something, and the energy flow grew a bit too slowly. But now, he had learnt that it was born damaged, which was why it was slow. Now, with the empty spirit witch's blood, the life force inside was like a freshly grown plant. It seemed to show a hunger it never had before, an unquenchable thirst for magic blood. The golden lines that decorated the gourd appeared in greater number. They had appeared before, but they had lacked the vibrancy and spark of life that were being visibly displayed right now. Han Sen acknowledged she was hiding something, and that there was an ulterior motive for helping him. There was a reason she initially wanted the gourd for herself, but it was something Han Sen had yet to discover. Boom! The air vibrated and an old wooden double door appeared in the sky. Through the frame of the door, a scary presence emerged, and as if it had influenced the atmosphere itself, the sky changed color. The spores of light that floated around the empty spirit which now started floating up directly towards the door, and then, from behind those doors, a human-shaped shadow approached. Han Sen was able to see it, despite the fog and blurriness that masked the entrance. Beneath the gravity of the tremendous force that came, Han Sen could not remain standing for long. He fell to the ground. Put the Holy Spirit away. The empty spirit witch's eyes looked strange as she spoke to him. Her lips did not move, but he heard her clearly in his ears. Although Han Sen did not know what she was planning, he immediately returned the gourd to his pack. When he raised his head, she was already flying towards the old wooden doors. The door opened and an elf-like lady appeared from the beyond. She exuded an elegance no human woman could, and yet the way she appeared seemed so natural and casual. Looking upon that woman once would imprint within your mind a sight that you could never forget. She was so natural that she blended in with the environment. No other woman looked like this. She smiled and asked, "Will you follow me along the path of evolution?" "Yes," the empty spirit witch calmly replied, as she flew towards the woman. The woman smiled in response. She put out her hand and allowed the empty spirit witch to land on it. But just as she turned around and was about re-enter the door, she looked down and stopped. She turned back around and looked at Han Sen. The empty spirit witch saw her look at Han Sen, and it made her heart jump with a sudden worry. The woman observed Han Sen lying down on the ground, and she looked surprised. Then, she gazed directly at the red dot on Han Sen's forehead. "Saint Fan was here before. This is interesting. If I encounter him, I will not be able to let him go." The woman seemed to be speaking to herself. Han Sen was still being pushed down to the ground, and he was unable to hear what she said. The empty spirit witch did hear, however, and this seemed to bring her relief. She also turned to give Han Sen another look, one of much surprise. She thought the woman had noticed the gourd Han Sen possessed, but was surprised to see the woman was actually taking notice of the man himself. The empty spirit witch would never have considered Han Sen, who was not even a celestial being, to be worthy of the woman's notice. The beautiful eyes peered at him, and she smiled warmly. "From now on, you belong to me." Amidst Han Sen's confusion, he had no idea why she continued to stare at him. He too thought she had discovered the presence of his gourd, but then the woman pointed a finger directly at him. Boom! A light cracked the air and struck Han Sen's forehead. When Han Sen's mind returned, the woman was gone. She had already taken the empty spirit witch back through the wooden doors. While the empty spirit witch was in the process of leaving, she looked back at Han Sen's pack as if she really missed the gourd. The old wooden doors shut, then disappeared from the sky. Han Sen had a long sigh. When he touched his forehead, he felt nothing. Taking a peek at himself in his mirror, he noticed that the rouge from earlier had vanished. It had been replaced with what appeared to be the symbol of a lotus, although you'd have to pay close attention to determine what it was. On a passing glance, you would merely assume it to be a dot or pimple. These assholes. Do they have nothing better to do than going around leaving stamps on people? Han Sen shouted angrily. But in the next second, that anger was calmed by the sight of the fruit. When he quickly ran towards it, he found that it was ripe and had been cracked open. Although the core was gone, there was still plenty of pulp for him to gorge on. Before Han Sen flew up to the vine to retrieve the fruit, the empty vine began to wither. It was dying before his eyes, and as it did, its leaves turned yellow. Boom! The empty island began to quake, and it soon started to fall apart. With greater haste, Han Sen soared to the peak and snatched the broken empty fruit. Then, he took off away from the island for a safer region of the skies. The giant empty vine started to crumble down to the world below, and the island went with it. Great mountains of stone caved in on themselves, falling to the lands underneath and crushing the vines that once held them aloft. The noise of such natural destruction was deafening. The area soon looked apocalyptic, as if a pillar that once held the world up had now buckled under the weight of the life above. It had broken, and the world was falling into an abyss of ruined earth and craggy rocks. The giant vine fell and the island went with it. It was like the world was screaming, and with the flight of harmony and composure, only chaos would remain to take its place. Han Sen waited until all had settled before returning to the lands below. He flew down to observe the place where the island had come down. It was broken, and its hewn mountains had all but crumbled and disappeared, but evidence of its past still remained. Strangely, however, the mountain peak where the 4 fruit were born was wholly intact. The 4 super creatures were there, as well, standing like sculpted fauna. The seedlings on their heads already seemed to be growing healthily. Their roots must have coursed deep into the peak, although Han Sen couldn't guess how far they went. He was wondering if he'd receive something by cutting the seedlings. But if he did that, the vines would become extinct. And Han Sen was concerned about the likelihood of the vine attempting to protect itself from would-be ruiners, and so he gave up his idea of giving them a shave. Han Sen had already received plenty of rewards from this outing. His gourd had been fixed and he had received the empty fruit. There was no need for him to cut the seedlings. Han Sen tried to nibble a bit of the empty fruit for himself, but it was like sand. It was impossible for him to consume such a thing. But he knew it was quite similar to the holy rhino's meat, which was harmful when he attempted to eat it, as well. The silver fox started to show some movement, and it clearly wanted some of the empty fruit, too. He stroked it to comfort it, but summoned his death knell and brought out his gourd to see if they wanted it first. They showed no reaction, so Han Sen cut the fruit into 5 separate portions. He gave 1 piece to the silver fox, 1 piece to the fairy, and 1 to the owl. The last 2 pieces were given to Moment Queen. Moment Queen had proven herself invaluable and had helped out a lot throughout this excursion. Therefore, he wasn't willing to go cheap on the reward he wished to give her. Moment Queen accepted the 2 pieces, and after that, the way she looked at Han Sen was somewhat different. She believed Han Sen would only be willing to give her 1 slice at the most. She was very surprised to receive 2. "If you serve me well, I won't mistreat you. You earned this," Han Sen told Moment Queen. Moment Queen nodded in response and then ate the 2 pieces of fruit. Nothing changed, and so Han Sen returned her to the Sea of Soul. When Han Sen returned to Moment's shelter, he was greeted with the sound of battle. The noises of a fight clashed against the roaring of Little Black and Big Black. "Who dares enter my territory uninvited?" Han Sen ran inside and saw the armored phantom fighting the 2. Big Black was unable to beat the armored phantom, and Little Black was still recovering from its injuries. And now, they were both bleeding heavily from wounds sustained in the fight. The armored phantom had seen Han Sen about to be trapped by the vine back on the island, so it believed him to have been killed. Therefore, it had returned here to take the shelter. It wasn't expecting his sudden return, and as soon as Han Sen appeared, it attempted to flee. "You come here, bully my guard dogs, and now try to run." "I don't think so. Go get him." Han Sen summoned Moment Queen and the little angel to attack the intruder. The armored phantom was quite powerful, and it lasted a whole hour against them before Moment Queen was able to finish it off. Moment Queen killed the super creature Steel Night King. The beast's soul has been gained. The flesh of this creature is inedible, but you may harvest its life geno essence. Consume its life geno essence to gain 0 to 10 super geno points randomly. You may retrieve the beast's soul from Moment Queen. Take it now. Without a second of hesitation, Han Sen immediately took the beast's soul. One thing about this latest kill stood out to Han Sen in particular. The Steel Night King was a 2nd-generation creature, and the announcement said he was unable to consume its flesh. If a 1st-generation super creature could not be eaten, its body would decompose. Strangely, however, this body remained. The green light vanished, but the armor and greatsword did not disappear. "Is this its gear?" Han Sen picked up the armor and steel greatsword. They were quite heavy, but after giving it a few swings, Han Sen thought the sword felt good to wield. Han Sen tried to simulate the energy flow of the armored phantom, and when he did, the steel greatsword emitted a beam of green light that was a few meters long. The light was much stronger than when he used it on his flaming Rex spike. It seemed to be exclusive gear, and it delighted Han Sen to receive even more good spoils from his recent escapades. After this was done, Han Sen went to refine the life geno essence in the Spirit Hall. The green life geno essence effortlessly dissolved into his body, and as it did, he felt his muscles tighten and his joints strengthen. Steel Night King life geno essence has been absorbed. You have received 1 super geno point. The announcement rang multiple times in his head, and it brought Han Sen much joy every time. He was feeling disappointed at his recent inability to obtain super geno points, and he was delightfully surprised to see the Steel Night King practically deliver itself to him. In total, Han Sen received 8 super geno points from the life geno essence of the Steel Night King. This brought his total tally up to 63. "I'll be maxing out soon, for sure." Han Sen's heart was as merry as one could be. After packing up, he used the teleporter at Moment's shelter to return to the Alliance. Back in the Alliance, Hansen quickly got Jai Yanran on the horn. He told her about his encounter with the Bloodhorn Shura. Something like this actually happened. I must certainly inform my father about this. Jai Yanran's face looked deathly serious upon hearing what he had to say. If medicine could quickly increase the fitness of humans and allow evolvers to cast elemental powers on a whim, such a concoction would be quite terrifying. When Jai Yanran accepted the vial of the Shura substance, she could still hardly believe what Hansen had told her. Research it first. Hansen knew what he had stumbled into was something of importance, but making statements about it was pointless until they learned more. If they could reverse engineer the serum and discover what it was composed of, then they could fantasize about it. But if they were unable to recreate it, and its association with the Zhao family became public, Hansen believed their influence and prosperity would become unstoppable. Anyway, why were you looking for me? Hansen asked Jai Yanran. A group of Shura will be visiting the Alliance soon, and I will be attending the feast that we are to share with them. I was hoping you could join me, Jai Yanran said, as she put away the sample. A group of Shura? What are they doing here? Hansen asked, with much surprise. They are here to discuss a possible truce, Jai Yanran said with a smile. A truce? Hansen looked shocked. Humanity and the Shura had been locked in conflict for many years now. The fighting had mostly stopped, but there hadn't been any official declaration of peace. Jai Yanran smiled and said, humans have developed too quickly, and our technology has far exceeded the Shura's. Before, humanity and our bodies were much weaker than the Shura. But due to the existence of the sanctuaries, our bodies have been able to evolve. Right now, powerful humans can rival Shura. With everything else we've achieved, we have managed to get ahead and stay ahead of them. Furthermore, the king of the Shura recently died. Many nobles are currently competing for the throne, placing their entire government in turmoil. They cannot spare the time to fight with us while they attend to their own problems. Therefore, it makes sense for them to desire peace. Hansen smiled and said, okay, but making peace is a huge deal. It is an issue of diplomacy, so why do you want me there? I am not asking you to be there to discuss the peace. I just want you there to mix and get to know the Shura. Have fun, dance, and party with them. Jai Yanran laughed and squeezed Hansen's face. Then, she continued to say, my father would never be stupid enough to leave the actual peace brokering to someone as inexperienced as you. No offense. You want me there just to join in the festivities. You can rely on me to be there, eating and drinking. I'm quite experienced in that, I'll have you know, Hansen said. My dear wife, I must ask you again, then. For what purpose do you want me there? Hansen grabbed Jai Yanran's waist and pulled her onto his lap. As he did this, his hands began to surf along her body and into her clothes. Jai Yanran blushed and said, hey, I'm talking about something serious here. Okay, then tell me. Hansen was clearly not taking things seriously, and his focus on other things was beginning to drain her of interest in the topic. As well, her face was becoming more and more red. Shura are a very proud people. Although they have come here to make peace, they will most likely not be able to refrain from finding something to insult us over. Jai Yanran took a breath and then continued to say, Shura always poke fun and laugh at the human body. There will be many young nobles among the Shura entourage. They will find any excuse they can to challenge the combat abilities of our young, and although we have powerful people, few are capable of competing at such young ages. If we sent elderly to fight for us, even if we won, they'd still laugh at us. So, before Jai Yanran finished her speech, Hansen had realized what she was asking. There was no other human that was as powerful as him at his age. That's it. Hansen smiled and looked at her. Yeah, Jai Yanran answered. Then let's get down to my business. Hansen picked up Jai Yanran and tossed her onto the couch. There are 2 royal families of Shura coming. One of the royal family members is a 4th-rank Shura fighter, and he is the one spearheading the entire collective that will be visiting. He isn't a person to easily lose his temper, but even if he does, others will be the ones to take care of it. It's not up to us to sort that out. This royal Shura is called Yukiland. He is 22 years old and is a very notorious member of the Yu family. Our intel states that when the Shura reach adulthood, their fitness level is gauged to be at around 200. If they continue to train and learn their Shura skills, they can become even stronger. Yukiland's fitness is estimated to be at around 260. That's not a precise number, but it's an educated approximation from our best information. If Yukiland wishes to fight, then he would most certainly call upon someone famous. If he wants someone to fight, he would most likely pick me. The Shura think differently. To them, our president is the king. As the daughter, that would make me the princess. He is a royal Shura, and he would end up being forced to pick me for a duel as the only half-viable candidate. The Shura know much about our society. If they challenge me, it is not because they don't know that I cannot fight, they would wish to humiliate us. My father asked that you come for insurance. If he asks me to fight, then I would need you to be my champion. You are my fiancé, after all. Han Sen was not allowed to take part in the meetings between the Alliance and the visiting Shura, in which they sought to broker peace. The introductory meetings took them only 2 days, but it would take at least 2 months to negotiate terms. There were many conspiracies in the works, ones which Han Sen could not understand due to his lack of proficiency in the field of politics. All he did was wait until Jai Yanran was ready for him to go to the dinner. In the middle of the feast, the Shura suggested a duel. The Alliance had already prepared for this suggestion, and so everyone walked outside towards the plaza. Jai Yanran was nervous. She hoped Yu Qilin did not challenge her, for if he did, Han Sen would have to fight. Yu Qilin looked at all the people before him and said, I wonder which one of you is Dollar. I have heard he is the strongest young human by a cosmic mile. I want to fight him. When he said this, everyone froze. No one had anticipated this request. The receptionist ran up and said, Mr. Yu, I do not know where you have heard about Dollar, but what you say is not true. Wang Xiao is our most famous young one. That is strange. Then how did I hear about this Dollar person managing to achieve a position amongst the 10 Son of Gods? As for this Wang Xiao, I have never heard of him. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.